This article is part of my current book project, which is an intellectual history of originalism. I'm writing the chapters first as works of legal scholarship, which I'm publishing in law reviews, but my aim is to pitch the book at an audience beyond the legal academy. Still, I have a feeling of obligation to first present the material in a fuller format with a more complete citation apparatus than a lay reader could or ought to stomach. I'm hoping that workshops such as this one will help me to ordain and establish a more perfect book. My original plan for the book was to cover originalism's prehistory rather quickly in one chapter. That chapter would cover everything from the founding through the Lochner era and the New Deal, with a nod to Justice Black on my way to the 1960s, when I thought the story of originalism really began. At the time of my original plan, the scholarly consensus among originalists and non-originalists alike seemed to be that originalism was a reaction against the perceived excesses of the Warren and Burger courts. Recently, however, originalists have made a very interesting variety of arguments that originalism was baked into our constitutional jurisprudence from the start. Since my aim with the book is to track the genesis of an idea and to understand why that idea arose in the particular form that it did at the time that it did, it's important for me to be able to pinpoint the advent of originalism. Claims that originalism has always informed courts' approaches to constitutional interpretation drove me back to the early Republic to see for myself. Some of you may have seen that I have an article on the Chisholm case, which is my way of getting at the interpretive methodology of the pre-Marshall Court. While there are important differences between that court and the Marshall Court, I have concluded that contemporary debates swirling around originalism and living constitutionalism are not the best vehicles for understanding either of those courts' approaches to constitutional interpretation. Like many others who have looked carefully at the constitutional jurisprudence of the Marshall Court, I concluded that the court's interpretive methodology was eclectic, drawing on existing traditions of common law and statutory interpretation. What is new here, I think, is my observation that the court's non-hierarchical pluralism leads to impasses where interpretive modalities lead in differing or opposite directions. Without a hierarchy of interpretive modalities, there's no way to determine which interpretive conclusion should win out except by appeal to extra-legal intuitions or commitments. However, Marshall and his brethren would not highlight these extra-legal intuitions or commitments because to do so would call attention to political or ideological commitments that inform their constitutional making and interfere with Marshall's project of establishing a court that would say what the law is on a nonpartisan, purely legal basis. For that reason, key decisions are made offstage rather than in the written opinions, and vital interpretive choices are insisted upon rather than argued for. This is what I call second-order ipse dixit. I write here as a historian. I am seeking neither to defend nor to undermine originalism. There are normative arguments in favor of originalism that my historical argument does not address. Moreover, I think modern courts are constrained in ways that the Marshall Court was not, and so resort to ipse dixit is far less common today. However, I do worry that the passions of our current debates over constitutional interpretation lead us to violate what I regard as a fundamental historicist duty, that is, as Leopold von Ranke put it, to treat each historical epoch as standing unmediated before God, unmittelbar vor Gott, or as I would put it, to strive to understand each historical epoch in its own terms and for its own sake. That is my aim in this article, and I look forward to learning from you the myriad ways in which I have failed. Thank you.